to B, approval of the minutes last meeting.
In approving the minutes, we ask that you speak up and maybe raise your hand when you make a motion and do a second so that we can recognize who did that. Sometimes we can't hear. Me in particular.
Well, I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Motion to approve it. We have a second? We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Number C on the agenda, International Residential Code Subcommittee reports and discussions.
Okay. Thank you, Chair and members of the board. This afternoon, we bring this agenda item to you. As you're aware, in our previous meeting, International Residential Code Subcommittee was elected members thereof, and we've had 2 meetings thus far in relations to the International Residential Code. The members of our subcommittee, Mr. Bixby, Mr. Flory, Mr. Ravenkamp, Mr. Robinson, Mr. White. So the minutes from this first board is what we're attaching with you today, just to give you an idea of what we've spoken about thus far. Several more meetings are going to be forthcoming. It is in no way concluded at this point. Probably 2 or 3 more meetings before we include just the International Residential Code portion of it. On February 17th, the first meeting, staff presented significant changes to the 2006-2012 International Code for review, discussion, recommendations. Staff also presented the Salina Municipal Code amendment specific to the International Residential Code. Much discussion ensued from that presentation as it relates to the amendments and it relates to the actual code text and whether or not some of these amendments would be necessary in the future. As we've moved forward in the residential subcommittee, it's been determined that several of our amendments are no longer necessary because of repetition. The exact same text is reflected in the 2012 International Residential Code, so there was no point in keeping an amendment saying the same thing as the residential code. So we've been fortunate to have a few occasions where that's occurred. The most noteworthy topic we had was thus far is what we're considering as exempt. Items that are exempt in the residential code. We also had discussion this last meeting as what would be exempt in the International Building Code. Exemptions are specific to code bodies, and oftentimes they are reflected in the amendments, so it's easily recognizable for someone researching the Salina Municipal Code as to what items would or would not require a permit. As such, we put these exceptions as part of the Salina Municipal Code, as part of the amendments, because they are subject to change with each code cycle, and it's easy for everyone to find this information as they research it. Thus far, we have determined, as far as the amendments, the International Building Code and the International Residential Code, they correlate so closely in these 2 items, or in this one specific area, that the information is almost identical. Even though it's the International Residential Code Subcommittee, it was beneficial for us to look at the International Building Code side as well. And in turn, we'll do the same thing when we create our International Building Code Subcommittee to look at both of these to make sure that all of the exceptions that we've chosen correlate with each other. All of this, as you see in the Salina Municipal Code, if you look in your packet, work exempt from permits. This was one of our primary focuses, that we have completed this, and we'll be choosing different topics of conversation henceforth. But as you see it in your packet is what the subcommittee has decided. If there's any specific item that you see in your packet that you want further discussion from staff or further comment, I'd be happy to do so.
this.
And again, there will be several more updates for the Building Advisory Board as we go forth with the International Residential Code Subcommittee and our additional meetings. With each additional meeting, we'll come forth and bring to the board a brief analysis of what, and a brief synopsis of what we've discussed the previous time, each and every time, in case there are any questions.
I have a suggestion that we would schedule the subcommittee meetings out a couple weeks in advance, and maybe even schedule 3 or 4 of them now so that we can put them on our calendars.
We can at this present time, staff can do 3. I probably can schedule 3 out. The next one, because of the correlation of trying to get everyone on board, and that was going to be a topic at one of my end discussions today, but while we're on the subcommittee, is there a specific day that you prefer? What's easiest for us, I would say, to obtain the room necessary for us to have these meetings is on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Is the 2 o'clock p.m. to 5 p.m., is that satisfactory for everyone? Or is it not working well with your schedules? Once we get that item addressed, well, then I can start scheduling 3 or 4 at a time for a specific day in 2-week intervals.
Would it be possible to do it the same day as the Building Advisory Board, since our afternoon's already screwed up?
If the room is available, that is a possibility. So you're talking about prior to the Building Advisory Board, and not after? Okay.
You don't get paid overtime for after, right?
Such is not the case.
I think the big thing is making sure the room's probably available.
To make sure we got more than a 2-day notice that the meeting's gonna happen.
True.
Yeah.
So is your preference to have them the same day as the Building Advisory Board each month? Prior to the Building Advisory Board starting at approximately 2 o'clock?
That'd be fine with me. I mean, I don't know what the consensus is, but that would give us 2 hours of the subcommittee. And if that's enough time for us, because we've been going about 2.5 hours.
On the average, that's what we've been going, 2.5 hours.
Yeah. So, but 2 hours is fine with me. I think we can find a stopping point.
And we also need to, one other thing we need to consider with subcommittee meetings, although they may be, if we're looking to do it once a month, that's going to slow the process down somewhat, whereas the State Fire Marshal's office they're really gearing up with their adoption process.
I don't think it'd be, I think that'd be one time, and then we'll go ahead and schedule it.
One, 2 weeks, and then one on the day of the
Right.
building. Okay, very well.
I think just getting the 1 day a month like that would help out on the scheduling.
Then we'll look to continue with our scheduling for Tuesdays at 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. One meeting prior to and one meeting the day of the Building Advisory Board. That would put our next meeting for our International Residential Subcommittee on the 25th. Is that correct?
Yes.
24th is a Tuesday. 24th. I stand corrected.
Well, I stand corrected too.
If that doesn't work on a Tuesday, would Thursday work?
I'm pretty flexible myself.
I don't have any problem with that. So, in other words, if Tuesday wouldn't work, we could schedule on Thursday.
Right.
Other than the board, the board.
But for now, I understand that our subcommittee members are in favor of the Tuesdays. at 2 p.m. Very good. Well, then we'll schedule accordingly, with the first one, our next subcommittee meeting being the March 24th, Tuesday at 2 p.m.
Can you get the room then?
If we have difficulty with with reserving the room, I will let the subcommittee know quickly so that we can change perhaps to a different day.
Okay, that'd be fine.
Tuesdays are typically, so far they've been working very well for us as far as reserving the room. But in case there is a conflict, I'll be sure and let you know.
Okay. Any other questions on this topic?
Would it be, other than, would it be wise to explain to the audience what we have been doing? I mean, I know you went through the work exempt from permit, but just so they know what we're doing.
Yes, I can give a brief synopsis on that. With each and every code amendment, and each and every amendment that's in the Salina Municipal Code, we address each one of those. They reflect specific language in the International Residential Code. If it's decided with the subcommittee at that point that the amendment needs to stay, for instance, certain things need to be considered as part of an amendment. Things such as climatic and geographic regional design categories. Those are specific to a specific region. As such, they are typically included in the amendments of a municipal code. For instance, your frost depth, your wind speed, design parameters, loads, what is the live load of these particular structures that we are designing. Those type of things remain as amendments in the code because they too may be subject to change in future editions of the code. Other items that we address quite often is what is exception or what is exempt from permitting. Things such as plug and play items, so to speak. If you're plugging in a fan, of course you don't need a permit for that. You want to include these type of exemptions, and those are the items that we went through. And those of you that's been working here for some time, you're quite familiar with the Salina Municipal Code. You know that's listed. What was expanded this year for 2012 is more latitude as far as electrical, mechanical, and plumbing work that was not in previous editions of the International Residential Code. So we included those as well for certain items that are not necessary to get a permit for, and they are exempt from the permit requirements. And all of that's going to be complete and available to the general public once we adopt the code bodies. And if there's any specific items that you have questions on, feel free to email me at any time, and I'll respond to you directly as needed.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda, International Energy Conservation Code follow-up discussion.
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. On this particular item, in our February 10th meeting, I prepared and presented the same presentation that was provided to the City Commission in a study session regarding energy conservation. Several questions were presented by the board which required additional review, further review, discussion, etc. on staff's part in regards to this presentation for the Energy Conservation Code. And in response to this, I have the following responses to that. One of the things we mentioned as a concern is item 1. Are we currently designing and building to the requirements of 2006 International Energy Conservation Code, which makes it equivalent to a HERS rating of 100? And our discussion led to an answer of yes, and I believe that was consensus with the board, that was consensus with members of the audience at that time. Now, our additional discussion ensued, whereas we're still seeking to obtain an actual HERS rating to verify this baseline. And at this point, I do not have that particular baseline, but hopefully by our next meeting, I can have this information for you. And hopefully Mr. Robinson can assist me with that particular item. But still, I think we are designing to the baseline from the information that was provided in the discussion that was given to us. On item 2, what are the actual costs associated with increasing the design and constructing to a 2012 International Energy Conservation Code? It was determined at that meeting that additional research and investigation needs to be necessary so we can reflect true costs as it relates to this jurisdiction as opposed to national average figures. And that is ongoing at this time. And by probably our next meeting, I hope to have those costs available for you, or at least a good baseline of what the average cost is. Number 3, we discussed what are the actual energy cost savings due to the justified additional expense of designing and building to the 2012 International Energy Conservation Code. Again, this was something we determined that we needed some additional information. And again, that one is ongoing just as item 2. As those items, as the information is completed and obtained, it'll help solve and have an actual answer to item 3 as well, as far as how the cost savings parallel to actual out-of-pocket expenses to meet these requirements. On item 4, one keynote concern was what is actual BTU saved in designing and constructing to a 2012 International Energy Code. It was discussed that true savings, they should be reflected as BTUs, thereby giving a more accurate cost analysis. That too is ongoing at this time. I don't have a true BTU savings on this. And any participation or recommendation from the board would be greatly appreciated in that end as well. You can email me your thoughts and comments on that so we can reflect the BTU saved. Additional information, just to update, the National Association of Home Builders, their builder show in 2015, it was interesting, they had on this second handout or second portion of the handouts you have available, we have national averages based upon the home show that they had and presented. They're saying now that the types of home desired, the types of homes most desirable, single family are 75%, townhomes 11%, apartment 4%, manufactured homes 3%, areas preferred based on their analysis, suburbs 66%, rural 24%, and central city 10%. As far as, and this is all applicable to residential construction, of course, and the National Association of Home Builders, their data also showed the 10 most likely features in a single-family home, the most desirable. What do people actually want? A walk-in master closet, understandably so. Laundry room, of course. That hasn't changed in many years. Low E windows. A great room. Energy Star appliances. 9-foot ceilings, first floor. Energy Star rated windows. Programmable thermostats. 2-car garage. And granite countertops in the kitchen. Granite countertops has been like for the last 3 or 4 years, I think. But we're seeing more and more of a turn toward energy conservation. Look at some of those items that you see there, specific to energy conservation, energy efficiency. Now the least likely, and I thought this interesting, outdoor kitchen. Seems that's losing flavor in the last couple of years. They do not want laminate kitchen tops. Outdoor fireplaces, sunroom, 2-story family room, media room, 2-story foyer, walking, jogging trails in the community, number eight's a bit puzzling, whereas some of other data that we find, we've discovered the exact opposite, that that's a desirable element and for other people. Whirlpool in the master bath, oftentimes we don't see that anymore. Carpeting on the main level. People want hardwood. No more carpeting. Now, interesting, our millennial buyers, home buyers, our younger generation, Generation Y, their most wanted and desired list includes smaller homes. And we're seeing that more and more often now. Open concept, 2-story, 3 or 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, laundry rooms, exterior lighting, Energy Star rated appliances, Energy Star rating for the entire house, and interesting enough, our millennials are willing to pay extra for this energy efficient home when they know it results in a lower energy cost over the lifespan of that home. They want a linen closet, fewer amenities. It's been quite a while since we've seen that. Fewer amenities, smaller homes, more energy efficient homes. Unfinished spaces, they're more than willing to have unfinished spaces. A smaller lot, not larger lots. And here they would desire, the millennials would desire a park area in the walking, jogging trails, playgrounds, outdoor swimming pools, and more community elements. Their most unwanted list, elevator, no elevator in the home. I'm almost to the point I would probably like to see one. Golf course communities, high density communities, gated communities, they do not want these. Three out of 4 millennial home buyers are first-time home buyers. And again, they're much less likely to buy a new home, and sometimes now they are even looking at condominiums. It depends. When they do buy the home, it tends to be an older home with improvements, energy efficiency improvements. Smaller, less expensive homes, probably around 1,600 square feet, as opposed to an average of what we've been seeing of 2,400. They let financial reasons become more of a factor than what home buyers have done so in the past. And they are most likely to finance the home purchase out of current income rather than out of accumulated wealth. So just some of the trends that we are seeing now, the way that home buying and the home industry is moving to reflect those needs and address those needs. So again, we come back to energy efficiency is becoming a very keynote element in this. And it's very desirable with the younger buyers that we see. And something we need to stay focused on as we move forward with this code adoption process and upcoming subcommittee meetings and further discussions. You have any questions on this? Concerns, comments?
I would like to see, and you're heading that direction, building a database of BTUs per square foot with that broken down more. And Mr. Robertson has some amazing data, if you could talk him out of that, of a lot of houses in town. Like I did my own house, and I just did the simple BTUs per square foot. And it's 25,000 BTUs a square foot. I think that's probably pretty good. But you can break that down further, like into air conditioning and cost and heating cost. But we need to build a database of as many houses as we can in Salina. And that data isn't easy. I mean, you spend some time going through and you got to get the utility bills and you got to have the square footage and then analyze all that.
matters for our situation is what is the heating and cooling cost per square foot, because that's the only thing that the building code is going to affect, because all the occupant dependent behavior needs to be taken out of that in order for it to be relevant to the building envelope. But we can, probably got information on 100 houses in Salina, but would take quite a bit of time to dig through all that. And some of that's not gonna be very relevant because it's older houses.
Older and,
Well, what we're concerned about is what is the building industry like now, not what it was like in the 60s.
exactly.
So I probably don't have information on more than about 10 or 15 houses, or maybe 20, I don't know.
But out of those
the
10
last
to 15,
15 years.
we're still reflecting the true design standards for those 10 or 15 as they stand right now, for the current codes and standards.
Say that again?
The 10 or 15 that you have information on is based upon at least a 100 HERS index or a baseline of 100.
Well, they would be, it's just whatever, however they built the houses in the last 10 years or something. And that would be pretty similar to how they're building houses now.
That would be useful information to have that concrete data.
And are you coming up with that BTU per square foot or however you're doing it,
From utility bills.
just from the utility bills and, I mean, without doing a design, heating and air conditioning design, are you doing that?
You don't need to get BTUs per square foot. You just need to know how many BTUs they used. And the square footage,
And the
obviously.
Square footage, right. Okay.
Well, I was involved in this with the job I was doing just before I retired, which was on a commercial basis, which is quite a bit different than how you have to look at it on a residential basis. And I think the most time-consuming thing is getting the bills for the last 2 or 3 years,
It's simple for residential. You can just look it up on your account online.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Or Westar and Kansas Gas just have it all online.
Well, that's great. That's great information. And then all you need to know is the square footage of the house. And then you can go through and analyze how much of that electricity was going for air conditioning, which you can do.
So I can get that information together. It's just a matter of finding time to actually do it. It's
Understood.
take me a day to put it all together, and I don't have a day for a while.
Your utilities bills reflect in a graph form your utility usage for the last year. They show a 12-month history on your utility bill each month.
Right, but you can request from the utility company a little bit more detail than that too.
And is there any help from them from the utility companies that they can give us?
They are not allowed to give out any information other than the total number of kilowatt hours or MCF for the entire year, or an average per month. That's the only information they can give out without consent from a homeowner.
How do you break out the air conditioning summertime?
You can look at what the lowest month is and assume that that's not having, that doesn't have any heating or cooling. That's not exactly accurate, but it's close.
Okay. You know, you get 200 can lights in a 2,800 square foot house, it can change things from the next door neighbor.
Right, and
Okay.
having 6 kids can change things from the next door neighbor too.
Very much so. On the commercial entity, how much more research is involved in trying to determine those
Well,
BTUs?
As you said, you got to sit down and get your base month on your electricity, assuming that no air conditioning was going on then, and then you get on into the summer and you can kind of tell. It's not an exact science, but you can get pretty close to what you think's going to the air conditioning, and probably the same way with the heating. Although you've got the course, the water heater's basically gonna be the same all year, so.
Close, right.
So it's not exact science, but it's gonna be close.
I don't think we'll ever get to a point that it's an exact science. Too many variables.
Only way to get it exact is to actually meter a house, and we're not gonna get that kind of information.
No, we're not. Well, any information you provide would be greatly appreciated. You can email me at any time, send your thoughts and comments. And we'll keep this moving forward as we gather more and more data, concrete data that's applicable to our jurisdiction and for the energy conservation. Any other discussion on this item?
Okay, next item on the agenda, review presentation of the 2014 BAB annual report and 2015 BAB action plan.
Thank you. This item is basically our annual report for the year. And as you notice, accomplishments, other items of interest are included in this. For our annual report for the year 2014, the appeals board for the property maintenance code heard 8 appeals in 2014. The board reviewed, recommended one code amendment to the Salina Municipal Code, Chapter 8, Article 3, defining volunteer, what a volunteer is. Other items of interest for 2014. The board began the code hearing process with the ultimate goal of recommending adoption of the 2012 building codes. The board will continue to provide direction to contractors regarding continuing education requirements. The board established the following subcommittees to discuss and make recommendations regarding code adoption process for the 2012 building code, uniform versus international, and that was the Uniform Mechanical Code, International Mechanical Code, Uniform Plumbing Code, International Plumbing Code. Also in 2014, a new property maintenance inspector was hired and began work on May 27th of 2014. And you obtained the building official, which began work in August 15th, 2014. Attendance rosters are included with this. Now for our 2015 action plan, as it's being presented to the board, a review of the uniform versus international codes has been completed. A review of the International Residential Code is presently ongoing. Review of the International Energy Conservation Code is presently ongoing. Further discussions ongoing. A review of the International Property Maintenance Code revisions. There's been a rough draft completed of that, and it'll be presented once it's completed to the board. Review the 2012 International Uniform Codes for adoption. This is ongoing. And review the Office of the State Fire Marshal's Code adoption process is ongoing. And as I mentioned, the State Fire Marshal's Office, it does appear that they may be adopting the 2012 series of codes in the July timeframe, presently, from the last data that we've received from the office. Other items, our code hearing subcommittee review. This is going to be ongoing. Currently, we have the International Residential Code Subcommittee. Additional subcommittees will be coming forth to discuss International Building Code, International Fire Code, National Electric Code, Uniform Plumbing Code, and Uniform Mechanical Code. So as you see, this is a year that we're going to be extremely busy with subcommittee meetings and BAB meetings as it relates to a code adoption process. We will review or continue our review of continuing education requirements for building contractor licenses. Continue to review the continuing education requirement for skilled trades license and renewals. And we are looking to establish a new category of contractor licensing specific underground utilities and excavation contractor, and this would be specific to those contractors that do primarily site utilities up to the building point, whether it's a fire line, the main water line, sanitary, those type items, and try to establish more education opportunities for our contractors. The board have any comments or any additional items you think we should pursue in the year 2015?
You know, I don't know if this is something that should be on here, but, you know, in our subcommittee meetings on the IRC, we've been discussing the permit for roofers. Should this, I mean, is this an issue, a topic that should be on here, or?
Before 2015 is over, this could probably very well become a topic, and it'll be included in our 2015 action plan for review. And when we bring forth the 2015 Building Advisory Board information for next year, that could very well be a topic that's going to be included. A lot more research needs to go in that as far as how to staff that, how to properly address that, the total numbers, the staff time involved. Do we have enough staff? It's going to be a tremendous change once we start pursuing requirements for re-roof operations and all new roofs. So a lot more research is going into that as we speak. I hope to have an update for the International Residential Code Subcommittee. Our next meeting may have some more information to further address that topic. Is it going to be a quick solution? Probably not. Is it going to be timely with the 2012 code adoption? Perhaps.
Do we know what any other areas are doing with that as far as roofing? As far as, say, Wichita, Topeka, or Manhattan, or something like this?
Wichita, I know, I was talking to the uniform mechanical and plumbing individual at the meeting last week, and when he was the building inspector in Wichita, he said that they required a permit for roofing. So I'm just taking from what he said.
I think he said the next meeting that he was coming to, the subcommittee meeting, he was gonna bring Jim some information on that, how they ran that in Wichita.
And it could be some dated information that he has the way he was presenting that. Now, whether it's going to be to the current code standards,
Right.
no. But is it going to be information applicable to how they enforce re-roofing operation? Yes.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. There could be a permit, but maybe they're getting a permit and that's all. There's a lot of difference to follow up.
And I can also follow up as well and notify numerous jurisdictions around the area and see what their processes are now, if not, they even enforce that, or if they require a roofing permit.
Right.
Some do, some still don't. That depends on the jurisdiction
And where
and staffing requirements.
where you came from, did they require it?
Yes, we did.
And obviously you know what the requirements were for permitting roofs.
Right. What we did for residential, it was basically a base fee, a flat fee, permit fee, specific to residential. Commercial entities, commercial re-roofs were based upon the value of the work. In the residential side, we only perform one inspection, what we call the mid-phase, where you're approximately halfway through the roof. That way we have the opportunity to see the underlayment, the shingle application going on, flashing, etc., all at one time. That was the only inspection performed for residential. We didn't go back and do a final or that type of thing. Now, in commercial, it was a different thing. Commercial could be very well involved 6, 7 inspections. It depends on the size of the, if someone's re-roofing a school or whatever case may be. Much more involved. But it was something that was permitted in the jurisdiction and had always been permitted in the jurisdiction, and everyone was aware of that fact. But there again, too, you're looking at, it was a smaller, much smaller jurisdiction, so it was
Sure.
easier to manage that.
Okay, next item on the agenda, other business and announcements.
For our future agenda topics, again, we're going to be discussing a tremendous amount of subcommittee meetings, a tremendous amount of code body information coming forth. And we will establish further additional subcommittees for each one of these discussions, such as the International Building Code, and that may be the next one that we bring forth and request a subcommittee for. I would say within a month or so, we may be looking to establish an International Building Code Subcommittee to move forth with that item as we finish up the International Residential Code Subcommittee. Further ones to discuss, of course, will be the Fire Code. That one will probably follow very closely to the International Building Code, for reason being, the information in the Fire Code correlates with the Building Code very, very closely, especially as it relates to fire alarms, fire sprinkler systems, and that type of thing. We will also have the fire marshal involved in that and provide his comments on those. Any other educational items that you wish staff to pursue and bring forth to you? And there are still 2 openings for youth members. If anyone has any recommendation or know of anyone that wants to serve in that role, please contact us or have them obtain the interest forms for that.
Have we, excuse me, but have we, looked, I mean, or went out to like, Kansas, KTI, or, I mean, as far as the technical trade schools, and asked the teachers out there who might be interested, because I think that's valuable for them to come up, through that process.
I can make some email correspondence with them and go visit, see if we can come up with someone that'll serve in that role for us.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a good point of contact.
I think they're aware of,
Good advice.
aware of that we do have the positions.
Yeah.
It's been put out for the
Well,
last year or 2.
maybe to
We can
encourage
refresh
the
their memory, so to
teachers,
speak.
maybe to encourage the teachers to see if they can talk a couple of them into doing it. That there's always special kids in there that would be more than I think they'd like the opportunity.
We can definitely reach out to them as a refresher and reintroduce this and see if we can have some interest in this youth members.
I might interject here for a moment there. 2 years ago, we did have 2 students that came and sat on the board for a short period of time from the electrical trades class, and part of their problem and part of their issues remain that they go out in the afternoon to work on different projects. That's where they try to work in their lab or into a project out on site. And it interferes some with their education requirements. But we did have a couple students who were here for about 6 months during the period of time that they were in school for their last year. So but we can sure reach out to them again.
Am I considered youth?
You're most
Eternally
definitely
speaking,
considered
yes, sir.
youth. So make it official.
Yeah, mentally,
Okay, anything else on the agenda that anybody would like to bring up?
As you notice behind me, for those of you that have not picked up your 2012 code books, the code books, the stacks that you see behind us are the ones that we are looking to adopt to include our 2012 edition of Uniform Mechanical Code, Uniform Plumbing Code, 2011 National Electric Code, 2012 International Building Code, 2012 International Residential Code, and the 2012 International Fire Code. There's a complete set for each one of the members. For those of you that have not already acquired that, I know some of our members of the International Residential Subcommittee has already picked those up. Please pick those up as you're leaving this evening. And
I
for
think
your, once the code adoption process is ongoing and completed, we'll also request that the 2006 edition code books that you may have, to return those if you can when the time comes, so that we may provide those to Salina Tech or other entities for their use.
I think you should have included a dolly along with the books, because it takes a lot of manpower to carry those things around.
It does indeed. That's all I have for this afternoon. Anything else?
Any other questions? Not, we're adjourned.
Very good.